Thank you so much for being a part of today. I know that time is folks' most valuable asset, so super grateful that you decided to be here this afternoon. Today is a flash webinar called Meaningful Meetings and Masterful Meetings. I'm your host, Steve Maguire. My business is called Go Turnstone. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a second. The flash webinar series is brought to you by Expert Online Training and Go Camp Pro. I'll tell you also a little bit about those as well as we sort of get started here. So let me just quickly introduce myself here. Let's see. So Travis, I'm trying to go right through here for a sec, and unfortunately not able to advance my slides right now for some reason.
If you use the right or left arrow, does that make a difference?
No. All right, so let's see. I'm getting a whole bunch of blinks back and forth, unfortunately. Hang in there with us, folks.
Well, while you're doing that, if you take it out of presentation mode, Steve, you might just have to watch the whole, might have to watch it inside PowerPoint. But while you're fiddling with that, I will just call out some of the people that filled in the space. So Jules is calling from International Sports Training Camp in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania.
We're good to go there, Travis. Sorry about that.
No worries. No worries.
We're working here now. Great. Thanks, gang, for dealing with that little technical issue. So quick introduction of myself. I am a father of 4 kids. Going left to right there, you see Greta, who will be 3 years old on Friday. Scotia, who's a year old. Emmett, who is 4, and Nolan, who's 6. Just a little perspective from that side of it. My career as a speaker and teacher had definitely changed a whole bunch when I've had my own kids, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as we go along. There's a picture of me speaking. I'm a professional speaker as well, and I am an author. I wrote a book last summer for teachers, and I'm also a full-time school teacher. This is my 19th year teaching right now. So, quick little introduction of my business. So the title of my business is called Go Turnstone. You can find out more about what I do at goturnstone.com. That's my website. My email is also back here as well. It's goturnstone@gmail.com. So please feel free to reach out when we're done if you have any more questions about what it is that I do or why I do what I do, etc. So, sorry, still working on some of the technical issues here, so hang in there with me. It was working great last time. And let's not do that. Sorry, thanks. Okay, great. So, yeah, still having some technical issues, gang. Sorry about that. We were able to sort of, okay, there we go. Great. Okay, so hopefully we'll keep it rolling here with no issues. Just a little bit about our sponsors. Expert Online Training was founded in 2007 by Chris Thurber and his friend Evan Helty. Chris and Evan are both friends of mine as well. It's a website that hosts a library of video training modules for youth leaders since 2007. More than 4,000 camps and youth programs have subscribed to EOT to complement the trainings that they already do on site. Because no director or camp folk have enough time to cover every topic during an on-site training, EOT is there to fill in the gaps, is a good way to describe it. A good piece to keep in reminder of that too is a lot of these webinars or flash webinars you see are hosted by folks that are online, expert online faculty. I'm proud to say that I'm also one of the faculty members of this. I've hosted a handful of really fun videos on a whole bunch of different topics, including the weather and day camps, etc. So if you want to find more and learn more about EOT, the 877 number on the screen is there, or you can visit expertonlinetraining.com. The next piece is an introduction to Go Camp Pro. Go Camp Pro is the premier resource for directors year-round professional development. Owners and directors of youth programs turn to Go Camp Pro when they want some timely answers to pressing questions about management, staffing, program, finances, marketing, and leadership. You can definitely go visit gocamppro.com or gocamp.pro to learn more about it. It's worth mentioning also that anybody that subscribes to EOT gets $100 off their first year subscription to Go Camp Pro and vice versa. So it's a nice way to start your dual subscription, and it makes it more affordable for everybody. Just a quick format about the slide about the format today. So for those of you new to Flash webinars, it's a great format. I'm your single host. I'll give you some great information for about 20 minutes. We have about 5 minutes of rapid Q&A at the end, and then feel free to follow up with any questions you have via email. Again, my email is right there if you want to reach out and touch base about that. So, okay. So masterful meetings, the whole premise for putting this together is meetings are generally awful for a lot of people. They're not fun. People loathe them, and there's just, we can do a lot of amazing things in the world. Our technology is amazing. There's just a lot of awesome stuff we can do, but unfortunately, people still get have that poke me in the eye right now. That would be less painful than sitting through this meeting feeling. So I think big picture, that's the whole premise of why I put this together. So here are some simple ways. My policy always is simply this: take what you want and leave the rest. If anything you take from this is a good fit, awesome. Some other quick things to keep in mind. You don't need to be a summer camp professional or a teacher or any of those things to make a meeting change. Meetings happen universally across the board in every business that exists. And if you look at some of these things and say, that would never fly in the corporate world, or this wouldn't fly what I do, trust me, there's some changes you can make that will really get people more engaged. So, all right, the first piece is a printed agenda, and whether that agenda be posted while the meeting is happening, which is definitely my advice, and literally have people checking items off the list as you go. Have the agenda put up in front of everybody as the meeting is happening, or the agenda is sent to people ahead of time. Those two pieces, one of the biggest complaints I get about any meeting that's facilitated is the meetings get off topic. So you need a topic person. You need somebody to literally say a sentence like, okay, our meeting is leaving our agenda. We're getting away from what we came here for. We're no longer on item 3. We're talking about something that's not on the agenda, and we need to refocus the meeting. So a printed agenda ahead of time and a physical agenda in the meeting space while the meeting is happening is definitely an important way to start what you're doing. Next piece. So there's obviously a word play with what we're about to talk about, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I was asked to take over the meetings at the school that I teach at. And one of the first changes we made, which is at least one of my biggest pet peeves, but a lot of people's pet peeves as well, is when a meeting ends, typically what happens is half the group is standing up, people are getting packed up and ready to go. They're emotionally done, like they're not going to learn any more information. And typically what happens is someone stands up or somebody yells out, hey, 1 minute, I just have one more thing to say. And then half the group gets the information, the other half of the group doesn't get the information. It's just an awful way to finish a meeting. So the best way to begin a meeting is to eliminate that by doing what we call final announcements at the beginning. So literally the first thing you do on the agenda item number 1 says final announcements. And it's a 5-minute section of your agenda that is dedicated to any announcements people need to make that that they can't do via email, or that they need to add personal emphasis to, or whatever might be the case. It's just remember that the all camp game is going to begin at 7 o'clock tonight, or tonight's dinner is a dress-up dinner, or from a corporate standpoint, an announcement of, hey, remember that the all camp offs or the all group offsite training is going to be next Thursday, or just something. Just get it out of the way so people aren't saying, hey, I have one more thing I have to say at the end. So final announcements at the beginning is the best and most effective way to use that time. Third piece, any large group meeting you have. Camp folks, perhaps this one might be more for you, and teachers as well in the audience. Any large group meeting, we're talking over 20, 30, 40 people, that meeting should not be longer than 45 minutes. Because if you have a set agenda and that meeting continues to go on and on and on and drone on, you lose people. You reach a point of diminished returns. So whatever, if you're sitting there saying to yourself, there's no way we can do this in 45 minutes, anything is possible. So I think it's important to sort of prioritize your items, what do you need to do, how are you going to make it work, and do that entire piece, get that done, that large group setting done in 45 minutes. Small group work. So I still go to places where all of their meetings for their large groups are done in just that facet, just a large group for the entire hour plus, and everybody's seated the whole time. So small group work is great, even if there's no reason to create it. So let me give you a good example. If you were going to, say your topic you were going to address was staff morale, or you're in the middle of the summer and you want to deal with staff that are having some issues, or in the corporate piece, you feel like you want to talk about your business culture or your morale, all you need to do is simply say, okay, I'd like everybody to get into groups of 3 or 4, and by the way, that research talks about that's about the best group size. 3s usually the best, 4s are okay, 5s are too many. People can get lost in a 5. But a group of 3 or 4, and give them a minute and say, okay, how do you think we're doing things well here? What's the best part about our job or your job? And talk to each other for a minute. Even if that's a question you could just ask to the whole group, but if you ask it and let them answer it in small groups first, the likelihood that people are going to share to the larger group increases. And it also gives people an opportunity to interact with others in their group. It's really simple, and if you can add in some small group work multiple times throughout a 45-minute meeting, maybe twice, it definitely makes a difference for folks so they don't feel like they're being talked at the entire time. We've had enough of that. So the 5-minute rule I have is anybody that does any small group meetings, like your administrative team, your leadership team, whatever you might call those folks, you should always have what's called, I like to call it a 5-minute standing meeting every day. So and typically at the beginning of the day if you can do it. So corporate folks, it's your CEO, your CFO, your other key personnel that you want to get together, and just a quick check-in to physically see each other. All right, what's on tap for your day? What's the day look like for you? Large picture pieces of what you're going to do. In camp, folks, it's all your leadership team, your director, assistant director, waterfront. Okay, quick, right around the horn, 5 minutes. What's going on in land sports today? What's going on in aquatics today? Whatever it might be, and it's got to be standing, because if you sit down, 5 minutes becomes 10 minutes. So give yourself the opportunity to process amongst each other, grab somebody's iPhone, start the 5-minute timer, and just let it go. 5 minutes, that's it, no more. Put it up against an immovable object, like the beginning of your day, or whatever, like a time frame that you have to be somewhere else at the end of that 5 minutes. It makes a big difference and allows people to just physically see each other to start their day off. I know people think this is crazy. You're like, really, I signed up to take this, to have this guy tell me to bring food at our meetings? Yep. Any food you can have in a meeting makes all the difference in the world for people, whether it be apples and water or anything else more extensive. People are psyched to have food at your meeting, and it's a social piece. It gets people gathered around it to pick it up. People, if the food is spectacular, people are totally excited about having it. So food makes a huge difference with folks. Particularly if the food is made by somebody in your organization, that person, people might learn a brand new skill set about that person, etc. It is just a fantastic piece to add to the mix and makes your meeting a lot more meaningful and fun for folks. Movement. I cannot emphasize this enough. So I've always been a firm believer from a teaching modality standpoint of the term, and it's not very scientific, butt asleep, mind's asleep. So if you have people sit for the entire 45 minutes, or in this case, in some people's cases, longer than 45 minutes, hopefully not, you lose people. Even if, let's go back to that example I gave about talking about morale. So you say you have them talk about morale for a minute in their group of 3, ask them to stand up for that minute. Even if it's the smallest portion of time, it just allows people to have that physical break of any type of movement at all. And from a learning standpoint, some people do better with that. I'll give you a great example. I know myself that as a learner, if I'm walking around and moving, my brain works better. It just works for me. So other people can sit and process that for the entire time. I just can't do it. So I'm sure you have a lot of employees or staff that need to move also. So movement is a really key piece to add to the mix of what you do, however you may do that. I also wanted to kind of jump back to the piece surrounding your agenda items. When you go through your agenda items, sort of process as you go through the agenda, okay, where can we incorporate movement into one section of the meeting? Just make it happen somehow. If you're not familiar with Remind, Remind is another great tool. The website is remind.com, and I suggest you use Remind also. Remind is something that actually can eliminate meetings. It's an anonymous way for you to text message your staff or your employees or whoever to communicate information to them, maybe a follow-up to the meeting or a preview of the meeting or the agenda ahead of time, and your employees don't see your your cell phone number, you don't see theirs, and it's an easy, instant way for you to communicate. And as you can appreciate, the majority of folks, their #1 fastest way to communicate now is texting. So just keep that in perspective as you look at it. Remind is awesome. If you don't use Poll Everywhere is one of those tools you can use if you allow your staff to have phones, if people have phones in your meeting. That is an interactive piece. It gets people using technology. It can be a simple 4-choice, multiple choice question, something along the lines of, what was the best part of last week at camp? And A can be evening program, and B can be the Sunday activity, or whatever you choose to do. And people can vote, they can leave comments, and it's just an awesome way for people to communicate. And you can display this stuff right up on a screen and it gives the feedback in live time. So Poll Everywhere I've used in the past. I've used it in my classroom. It's really fun. Let me go back to Remind for a second. I use Remind right now as a teacher, and so I have 148 students this semester, and this is a game changer in regard to communicating with them. Reminders about homework, reminders about labs we're going to be doing, etc. So both of these, interactive piece when they're in front of you, and a preview or a review afterward or beforehand. So the other important piece I want to add about meetings is meetings should be professional development. It should not just be 45 minutes of information giving. So choose a professional development topic, whatever that topic might be for the reflection piece of your meeting, and let that be the theme of what you're doing. If you're just having a meeting just to sheerly communicate information and to give people stuff, you can email all that. There's no reason to physically meet. I mean, if you think about it, in my opinion, think about Blockbuster Video, right? Blockbuster Video did not adapt when the Netflix CEO met with Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Video did not want to do the online streaming. They laughed Netflix out of the room. And look what's happened to Blockbuster. And if you're like, what does this have to do with meetings? Everything. Because we don't need to have as many meetings as we have anymore, because the level of technology has changed. We've got to adapt like Netflix does and do a lot of our stuff beforehand, afterward, etc. You don't need to physically meet as often, but when you do, that time should be meaningful. It should be professional development. It should not be an hour of here's process and protocol. It should be about a topic that's meaningful to everybody in the organization about how you're going to get better at being a professional. So please let that be the general theme of your overall meetings. I put this picture in here for a reason, and I know techies, it's a little pixelated, so I apologize. But I put all the arrows pointing at one person for a reason. If this is how your meetings are conducted by just one person, I guess to put it plainly, please stop doing that. You should have multiple facilitators of your meetings. Different people should be incorporated in the mix, whether it be assistant directors or directors or whoever, or general employees, but definitely let different people be the facilitators. If you're the director, CEO, whatever you are, and you're constantly running your meetings, it's not mean, I'm just being honest, people get sick of hearing you. I stopped facilitating the meetings I took over 5 or 6 years ago. People were sick of hearing me. So if you have multiple attendees or multiple facilitators for your attendees, it makes a huge difference for folks as they look at it. The next one is active notes while the meeting is happening. So you should have a big whiteboard at the front of your meeting and have somebody just taking active notes. That's all it is comments and keeping information and writing down different pieces, key points. Have it be somebody maybe that can add a little creativity, like the pictures you see there that are kind of fun. Just something to mix it up. But so you have notes. Somebody takes a picture of it and sends it via Remind or through email to everybody in the organization. Really important. That way you have a record of what your meeting was all about. If you don't do a raffle, please raffle. And a raffle can be this. So everybody in your meeting comes in, they get a raffle ticket. You do a raffle at the end of the meeting for anything. It can be anything. Gift certificate to Amazon or movie tickets or food or whatever. And the raffle can generally be conducted. This is a really fun way to do it. So everybody in the room has a raffle ticket. Someone enthusiastically reads out, say the raffle ticket has 6 numbers on it. Somebody enthusiastically reads out the first 3 numbers. And everybody in the room stands up and cheers as if they've won. So you get everybody up and excited and moving. And then the person, so say the number was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the person yells out 1, 2, 3, and everybody gets up and cheers. And then the person says 4, and you're going to have a large portion of people sit down. And then they say 5, and then you're going to have a whole bunch of other people sit down. And then they read out 6, and one person will remain cheering. It's a really positive, fun way to finish your meeting. It leaves people feeling good, and they're excited about their organization and feeling happy. That's how you want people to leave a meeting. You want them to leave happy. You don't want them to leave saying, wow, I do not want to have another one of these meetings. That was terrible. So raffles are great. One of the worst ways, please, if you do this, please stop doing this. One of the worst ways you can finish an actual physical meeting is by saying, does anybody have any questions? Because what happens is you typically get, and I like to call this person the extender, you typically get one person in a group that raises their hand when everybody's been in a meeting for 40 minutes, 42 minutes, 43 minutes, and they come up with a question that easily can be answered either offline or, so they'll say, hey, I'd like to talk about the most controversial thing that's ever happened. Can we talk about that right now? A nice, easy way to do that, to prevent that if that person does happen, first is don't ask questions at the end, and then tell people at the beginning. If people have any big questions about anything we've done, we'll talk about it offline afterward. Also, regarding the 45-minute timeline, if people feel like if you feel like you have to go over that 45 minutes, at the 45-minute mark, say to people, all right, everybody, we're at 45 minutes. The meeting is officially over. We want to be respectful of people's time. So if anybody wants to leave, feel free. If anybody wants to stay to continue this discussion, they can, but the meeting is officially over. It's a good way to do it and doesn't leave people hanging. And the final piece today is a really fun way you can finish all meetings, is simply by giving a shout out. So here you go, a great way to finish your meetings. Like the last, instead of the, hey, are there any questions, or I have one more thing left to say, this is the agenda item at the 40-minute mark, is shout outs. And you have folks stand up in your organization and say, I'd like to give a shout out to Michelle, Michelle helped me so much with a really difficult situation I dealt with this week, and I just want to let her know how much it was meaningful to me and helped me a lot. And then the next person gets up and gives a shout out. The facilitator of this needs to kind of feel the vibe, like, okay, have we reached our point of diminished returns, or the shout out's over? But it's a really positive, fun way to let people finish a meeting and feel good again about what it is that they're doing. So those are the 15 pieces that people have, or that I have for you, that I've found from experience, been helpful, been meaningful, made your meetings a lot more fun. We're going to do the total opposite of what I just said, hilariously enough, in 4 minutes with a quick Q&A for me. Again, if you have other questions or want to find out more about what I do for trainings, my email is right there. But we have about 4 minutes for some quick questions, and I will take and address them as quick as I can. So, Travis, what do you got for me?
A couple people, Christina Beckwith in particular, said that they love Remind and they're looking forward to using it as part of the emergency notification. So shout out to you for that, Steve.
Awesome. I also just want to reiterate, like, perfect example. It wasn't an emergency situation, but today where I teach, we had a snow day, right? And so I got a remind email or remind text from my principal that said no school today. And we found out way before the official email went out from the school district. So emergency situations, great idea.
Right on. And if anybody else has any questions, you can put that into the GoToWebinar panel there. And we've got 3 more minutes left. We can take a few questions. Christina says it's also good for reminding parents of camp drop-off and pickup times. See, that's perfect. And Remind really is also the perfect thing for communicating with your staff. As Steve said, text is really the way to communicate about a meeting, and certainly for the most compliance, the directors that I've talked to that have the most compliance get that through using Remind and getting good text responses.
Another piece I would say, not so much even about Remind, but just about your meetings in general, is remind people that your goal here is to use your time effectively and to make this fun. I would also challenge you, and I know this is totally like against what a lot of people say. I would challenge you to meet less. I mean, I know you, and kind of go back and ask yourself, why are we having this meeting? Are we having this meeting because this is what we've done for the last 15 years? We've met every single week. Again, go back to the Blockbuster example. They did not change, and they went out of business. Technology has changed so much, we don't need to physically meet as much as we do. So I think it's an important premise to kind of keep in perspective as you look at your overall meeting structure.
Yeah, great. Great. So thanks to Amy, who wrote in great information, such great ideas for our staff meetings. And I don't see that we have any other questions, Steve, so I don't want to extend this any further than we need to.
Great. I just want to quickly tell everybody, too. So coming up, there's going to be another Flash webinar in April, and the whole premise of that one is going to be about bullies and bullying. So there is another one. You can check out the EOT Facebook page and look for the blasts and the emails that will be going out about that new Flash webinar. So I want to thank Travis so much for his time. Thanks to everybody for signing up. And look, again, support EOT and support Go Camp Pro, both awesome organizations. And please reach out to me if you have any further questions or need some more help. So thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Thanks for your time.